So spring is in the air and bass fishing is starting to get really, really good because we're starting to get some warm days like we have today. And what that means is bass are coming to you. And so what I want to talk about is my favorite pre-spawn grass fishing baits that are going to change the way you fish, because at the end of it, I'm going to talk about the 2 baits that you can fish in grass that are going to get you bites when everybody else has already exhausted the obvious choices. So those 2 baits are gonna be super, super secret, and I'm gonna throw those at the end, and they're gonna be something you didn't even think about throwing. So let's dive right into it. The first 2 obvious choices for grass fishing pre-spawn baits are going to be a chatterbait. This is a Z-Man Evo, Elite Evo. That is one of the new chatterbaits out on the market, but pretty much every chatterbait catches the fire out of them in grass. And the other go-to is going to be a lipless crankbait. This is a 6 Sense Duke right here, and you'll notice it is in this red color because that seems to be a super, super popular thing no matter where you're at in the country. It could be gin Clearwater, it could be dirty, dirty water. But why are those 2 baits super, super great at catching fish in grass when it's the pre-spawn? The key is the vibration, calling those fish, and also the reaction that they elicit when they rip free from grass, because they fish very, very well in grass. They work really good at going in and out of grass, especially a chatterbait. It's super easy to rip it out, and that's what causes a reaction. Same thing with a lipless. You might say, why not a regular crankbait? Because a lipless, as it runs through the water like this, it actually weasels in and out of that grass super, super easy compared to most of the other crankbaits out there on the market. And also with the vibration that they put off, the lipless having all of the rattles in it, they get big bites, because the pre-spawn is all about fish coming from deeper water into shallower water to do the dirty, right? They're talking about spawning, they're talking about getting up super shallow and then getting out of there. And so you have these super white, fat, pale fish coming out of the deep main lake areas, getting super shallow, and those vibrations just trigger those bigger fish. They don't like that vibration around them, it calls them, and as we all know, the louder the bait is, the bigger the fish it tends to catch, because they're the ones that aren't as afraid of it. And so it's a super, super fun way to catch fish. And the key to those 2 baits is you can actually cover a ton of water with it, because the pre-spawn can either be really great or really crap. Depending on if you figure out the right areas, you can really, really load the boat. I was just fishing a point over here. I'm on Gunnersville right now, and I fished like 6 or 7 points in a row, 0 bites. Not a single bite. I pull up to 1 point, and I get 6 bites almost consecutively, to where I was yo-yoing a lipless bait. I would yo-yo it, and it would feel like somebody just reached out and cut my line, right? Because that's what the pre-spawn is all about. It's about finding those staging areas, which is what it's all about, to figure out where those groups of fish are moving through. And so that's why these baits work so, so well. And when you're fishing these baits in grass, the retrieve is literally make or break. Because if you've ever noticed guys, when they throw a lipless crankbait out, they literally just burn it back. And you'll catch fish that way. You will catch a lot of fish that way. But when you vary the retrieves, when you throw it out there, you reel it, stop it, rip it free from that grass, yo-yo it, that's when you're really gonna start to differentiate yourself from the rest of the group. And that's how you're gonna get more bites. And the same thing actually goes with a chatterbait. The more you can elicit that reaction, you'll notice I say that a lot because I think it's super, super important. Instead of just casting it out and reeling it, it might be reeling it slower to purposely get it stuck in the grass, so that way I can rip it out. And you'll notice those are gonna be the best bites you get, because again, it's gonna feel like somebody reaches out and cuts your line, because those fish are gonna just inhale it, right? And they're gonna get some of your bigger bites that way too, because those fish hear the same thing over and over again, whether it be that lipless, that or that chatterbait where it's like da-da-da-da-da-da-da as that vibration's coming through the water. And anytime you can abrupt that and make it sound different, it kind of piques those fish's interest. Like, whoa, what in the heck was that? So that's really, really key when it comes to throwing these baits. Now, the 2 baits that I want to talk about that people really don't often think about when it comes to grass fishing in the springtime is going to be an actual lipped crankbait. This is that Fritz side. You can tell it's silent. It's got very, very quiet. Super, super awesome for days like we have today when it's flat calm. When you were in an area, you were getting a lot of bites, and all of a sudden conditions change, slicked off a little bit, or you only had one area where there was a bunch of fish, and all of a sudden you worked through it, you got some bites, and then you quit getting bites, and you want to switch baits to try to get more bites. That Fritz side or any small square bill like this is a great, great option. I'm going to talk specifically about one more crankbait at the end of the video, But that is just a super, super great option because it's super silent. And you can still get those reactions by weaseling it in and out of that grass, because it's still gonna get a reaction because it's gonna get bogged up, but it's gonna be something that those fish haven't seen, and that silent aspect is huge. And again, you can still cover a ton of water with that bait, which is super, super important. The same thing goes for like a DT6. You get that silent version. It's a little bit tighter wobbling crankbait. You can work it down a little bit deeper to tick the tops of the grass, which is primarily what you're gonna do with a crankbait. The lipless, you can let it bog in the grass and rip it free because it works better that way. It doesn't have a bill to get caught. Versus the small square bill, that DT6, and the one I'm gonna talk about here shortly, those are the ones you want it to just tick the top of the grass. You wanna figure out, okay, if my grass tops out in 5 feet, I want a crankbait that runs to about 5 feet. Because that way, you'll catch the longer tips of the grass and you'll still get that reaction, but you're not gonna get bogged down in the grass. You're not gonna get super, super stuck. Because again, if you're fishing eelgrass especially, that grass will roll around the bill of that bait and make it super, super tough to get off. Now, the other bait that I wanna talk about that is super, super awesome around grass this time of year is actually a swim jig. That's something that people don't ever think about, especially on Guntersville or any of the Tennessee River lakes. But when you get on some of those community holes, those fish have seen 1,000 chatterbaits, 1,000 lipless crankbaits, 1,000 square bills. But when you throw something that's super silent like this, that you can actually weasel in and out of that grass super, super weedless to keep it clean, to get better bites, and still hop it free through to get a reaction bite, dude, it's super deadly. That also works the same thing with a swim bait. You know, something that's silent, that has that paddle tail kick, that really you can still fish weedless, cover a ton of water, and get big bites is the key. That's what we want to focus on, because pre-spawn is the time of big fish. Let's talk about giant fish. And that's where these baits come in handy, because a jig has that bigger fish profile. Swim bait trailer on there, or a swim bait in general, bigger swim bait, does a great job at getting those bigger bites but still staying weedless. And I throw those on pretty much the same rod that I throw on my chatterbait, so I will have that link below with the rest of it. But let's talk about the last crankbait that I really want to bring into this. So the last crankbait that I want to talk about that people don't ever think about is going to be that 6 cents Swank. And the cool thing for this crankbait is it has a bill design that is something almost out of a comic book, right? It looks super, super stupid, but what it does is it actually allows that bait to hunt through that grass tighter, and it gives it more of like a DT style wobble where it's that super tight wiggle. So it actually goes through that vegetation super, super well. And you can see with the shape of that bill, grass doesn't really get caught on it very well. It actually just rolls it off and throws it off because it's not like a typical square bill. It's not super wide, wiggles through there super well. Actually still has a loud rattle. So you get that same lipless type reaction bite where those fish are hammering it, but you don't have the same problems that you're gonna have with a lipless. You get a different retrieve, a different style all to it, and you can, again, still cover a ton of water with this bait, which is why I picked it up, which is why I wanted to talk about it, because there are tournaments won all over the country on baits just like this. Texas, this is huge. Florida, guys, this is absolutely giant. Even the Tennessee River, this is a bait that you need to have in your arsenal because it's something that those fish aren't seeing. And as we all know, a lot of these bigger lakes like Guntersville, those are community hole lakes. Well, they're community holes for a reason, because those fish live there and they're there all year round, and you have to figure out different ways to catch those fish than the rest of the people in that crowd. So do yourself a favor, pick up one of these baits and some of the other baits that I talked about today and catch more pre-spawn fish. And if you want to learn a little bit more about lipless crankbaits, be sure to check this video I have linked up here. I think you're not going to want to miss that. But thank you guys so much for watching. God bless, and I hope to see you in the next video.